So again, it's even more important today that we recognize which angle we're looking at so we can identify whether they're opposite legs, adjacent legs, or the hypotenuse. Yesterday's work of tangents, we never used hypotenuse, did we? In fact, that was one of our homework questions. The problem with it was it gave us the hypotenuse, and many of you wanted to throw that in as the adjacent leg. And so instead, you had to use Pythagorean theorem to find the leg. Okay? The cosine ratio is the length of the adjacent leg divided by the hypotenuse. Then yesterday you heard Justin ask me if I'd ever heard of SOHCAHTOA. And right here is what he meant, if you've not heard of it. SOHCAHTOA. It's an acronym. It helps us remember what the trig ratios are. And so SOH stands for sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. CAH stands for cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent, TOA is tangent equals opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. Every year I give a lame story to help you remember SOHCAHTOA. Justin's already laughing. It's almost like you've been in my room and heard it before. How many of you ever get up in the middle of the night for whatever reason? Go to the bathroom, get something to eat? Seriously, none of you ever get up in the middle of the night? All right, thank you. I have some honest answers here. Get up in the middle of the night, you're walking to wherever, kitchen, you stop by the table and hit your foot on the table. It hurts, doesn't it? Stub your toe on the table. Well, you know you can break your foot, your toe. I mean, there's nothing they can do for you. You know that, right? You just gotta let it heal. Unless it's really smashed, then they go and do surgery. But just for normal broken toe, they don't do anything. So really the only thing you can do to help your toe not hurt is soak it. And so remember, if you get up in the middle of the night and you hurt your toe on the table, all you can do is soak a toe up. I told you it was lame, didn't I? It's so lame you might remember it better. All right, remember this. Sine, cosine, and tangent ratios only apply to right triangles. They only apply to right triangles. I know I emphasized that yesterday. I know that story was so bad. Don't worry, I have lots of bad jokes. I can tell you all day long. You know what you call a deer with no eyes?
No idea.
I have no idea. You know what you call a cow with no legs?
Ground beef.
Ground beef. You know what you call a hot dog? You know what you call a dog with no legs? It doesn't matter. He's not gonna come to you anyway.
What's cheaper, beer nuts or deer nuts?
What's that?
What's cheaper, beer nuts or deer nuts? Deer nuts because they're under $1.
Nice. Probably not necessarily the best joke to tell when we're recording.
Oh, I'm gonna listen to this now.
Now everybody's gonna get online and listen to it. Maybe it didn't pick it up very well.
Oh,
Because I didn't move the microphone over closer to you, so.
the microphone.
All right. We won't get into our politically incorrect no arms and no legs jokes, but I got a whole list of them. Here's an example. Remember what I said, the three must. Make sure it's a what? Right triangle. Identify where the angle is. And identify the hypotenuse. Okay? So our angle, this is, you guys like to do this. Tell me it's here. Yes, this is it. Here's the angle. Where's the hypotenuse? X. Here's the hypotenuse. Okay? So in reference to this angle, this side is the opposite, and this side is the adjacent. Okay? So, do we know anything at all about the adjacent?
20 inches.
Yeah, it's 15 inches. Do we know anything at all about the opposite? No. Do we know anything at all about the hypotenuse? It's x. So if we go up here, we had the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Which trig ratio is adjacent and hypotenuse?
Cosine.
Cosine. So we're going to come back down to our problem. We're going to say cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay? And what's our angle? 30. What's our adjacent side? 15. What's our hypotenuse? X. This is a good example because it gives us a chance to practice what I told you yesterday, right? So if you weren't here yesterday, you want to make sure you're watching. Excuse me. When the unknown is in the bottom, with these trig ratios, all we have to do is switch these two. What was out front and what's in the bottom. So x equals 15 over cosine 30. And we plug that in our calculator. Make sure our calculator is in degrees now. And if we round to the nearest 10th, what is it? 13. That's to the 10th. Oh, it is. Is it exact?
I got 17.3.
17.3. What?
That's not right.
17.3205.
Okay. Yeah, it can't be 13 because it's got to be bigger than 15, right? It's hypotenuse. So 17 makes sense. I wasn't thinking clearly. 17 point what?
0.3.
3205.
3 then. I think I said round to the nearest 10th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we round to the 10th, we get 17.3. Questions on that? Okay. You and your group try this one. I'll pause for a minute. Louder.
71.8.
71.8. Okay. So we identified right triangle, the angle I'm looking at, the hypotenuse. Once we identify that, then we can say, okay, this is the opposite. This is the adjacent. Right? Identify all those so that you know which trig ratio to use. We know nothing about the adjacent this time. We have the opposite and the hypotenuse. And so if we go back up, which ratio has opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So we say sine 17 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Once again, our unknowns in the denominator, so we're going to switch places. Y is equal to 21 over sine 17. And what'd you tell me? 70 what?
1.8.
Thank you. 71.8. Okay? Any questions on that? The only thing that makes this stuff difficult is the fact that there's 3 different ratios and they all look similar and you're going to get them mixed up. That's why I strongly suggest you do something like remembering about your hurt toe. Remember this, use it, take advantage of it, okay? Write it down on your paper, refer to it every time you do a problem, especially on your quiz and your test, so that you don't use the wrong one, okay? At least half the points on a test are you using the right trig ratio? The other half would be, can you solve it then? It might even be 3 out of 4 is are you using the right trig ratio and only 1 point for solving. Which is good if your algebra skills are bad and you're really good at identifying which ratio to use. You get 75% and never getting it right. Okay? But you have to make sure that you don't get them mixed up. The other thing that makes it a little tricky is trig is everywhere. Okay? Trig is everywhere. Everywhere you look, there we could write a trig question about it. Okay? And so there's going to be a lot of story problems where you're going to have to draw the picture, identify the parts, put the angles where they belong, put the sides where they belong, identify the hypotenuse, the adjacent, the cosine, all that stuff, and then answer the question. So there's going to be a lot of those types of questions that will be asked of you in this unit. Those are the only reasons this unit gets difficult. The simple concept of tangent is easy. The simple concept of sine is easy. The simple concept of cosine is easy. It's when you blend them all together and you put them in a story problem, it gets tricky. Okay? So it's not a good time to get lazy. There's only 5 lessons in this unit. And we are going to spend extra time on Monday. Monday I have another math meeting. So all the math teachers will be in a meeting all day long. And so on Monday, your assignment is going to be more practice on 9-1 and 9-2. Okay? Your test is going to be just before we leave for spring break. And so somewhere in between Monday and your test is going to be a good size quiz. Okay? Any questions of what's coming and what you need to do? All right. Then today's homework, I didn't write it down yet. Let's do the evens up to number 28. I wanted you to look at number 28. So 2 to 28 evens, that's only 14 questions, right?
Yeah. Because I know when you're not actually in recording mode, in here you can go, there's a setting, you can switch it.
Borrow
But I don't know about
Olivia's. 'Cause she's
save this one